diversity to that particular environment. This particular panel is really going to be focusing on producing and making shows and things of that nature. We hope that you can take this to your home games and stuff like that if you're thinking about that, but understand that these questions and things are going to be more towards the professional stuff. Also, just the very topic of bringing up diversity, especially in any kind of creative space, can have moments that could be concerning or triggering or worrying to everybody. So we give you the, I beseech you, I hope that you will take the time, if there's anything that comes up that's like, hey, I need to breathe, or I cannot be a part of this particular part of the conversation, please feel free to exit the room for a second, gather your thoughts, and if it's something that's really, really bad, I don't think we're going to go into anything that's too X-card worthy, but if it's something really, really bad, just dip and be respectful alongside. We'll try to be respectful for those type of things as well, okay? And by the way, diversity is not just about, trying not to make jokes, but not just about putting black and brown people in the show, but all sorts of things of just different heritages, different backgrounds, ethnicity is just one thing we can talk about, sexual expression, things of that nature. So we're going to be doing so many types of things, and yes, and as the
sorry, I did a rather femme-heavy. When I call for the Avengers, this is what assembles.
So as the I've talked enough.
It's like Lemar's our boss lead.
Please let me be the boss lead and not, oh, good guy. But speaking of people who can really speak to this topic, I would like to go down the line, and because we have so many questions, so we only have an hour, I would like you to give us your name, and a quick spiel about like who you are, what you do, and a fun fact. Quick spiel. 3 sentences max. And
Heard. I'm Sarah Durnesque. I am the producer and primary dungeon master for People Poison Productions, and we do interactive and live tabletop and general nerdery, mostly out of local bars. In lieu of my fun fact, I'm going to actually invite my fellows of the Caucasian Caucus to follow up on what Lemar said. If you experience discomfort, if you feel called out in any way, I am going to humbly request that you don't exit the room, but that you sit with those feelings and you allow them to simmer inside yourself. Because when it comes to diversity and representation topics, it is our duty to help further the cause. Okay, so that's my fun fact.
Hello, I am Grayson. I am the producer and main GM of Rolls for Initiative Los Angeles. Started in Japan, yeah, and is now in LA. Our next show is April 18th. I am also a screenwriter, voice actor, amateur pro wrestler, and dog parent. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Kelly D'Angelo. I'm a professional dungeon master for Girls Gets Glory and D&D. I've been in the scene a very long time, since the early days of the very beginning of streaming in the live stream space for D&D. I'm also a professional television writer. I've written for like this Vox Machina, you might have heard of it. I think that's the most famous thing I've written on, honestly. Everything else is, I guess, My Little Pony too, which is kind of cool. Yeah, so I've got a big but fun fact about me, April 18th is my birthday, so that's fun, and also I'm a dog mom, and I love it very much.
Hi, well, I'm Jade Valkyrie, I use she, they pronouns, and I am a co-founder of Big Wild Nut, which is an actual play channel, as well as one of the lead producers on that, as well as the player, and sometimes GM, in the tabletop space. Usually, I've been around here for like 7 years or so. I also do marketing, social media, and community management for Critical Role. And my fun fact would be, I don't think I've actually had a player character die yet in a campaign. Knock on wood. Yeah, it's weird. I got a table for you.
Hi everyone, I am Jordan Lambert. I am the Dungeon Master for Blackness and Dragons. We're an all-black actual play. Generally 8B5B, we run some other systems as well. I'm in pre-production for Final Girls, which is an all-family horror actual play game that's coming out this May. And my fun fact, in my 9-to-5 world, I produce pop culture merchandise. So a lot of cool t-shirts, sweatshirts, beauty products that you may use at your favorite emo store. I was probably behind them.
Perfect. I'm Lemar, I'm funny. Anyway, so once again, I want to make sure we keep the focus on this is producing shows with diversity. So with that, I would like whoever wants to take, is the most basic question, but it does make the foundation of this entire panel. Why is diversity important as far as producing the show? How does that expand your market and make it necessary for you to make a decent product?
So for Rolls for Initiative, as I said, it started in Japan, and the person who started it is an American Filipino man living in Tokyo, and he knows that D&D is like heavily a white male like centered game. And even in starting it, he made the logo the colors of the bisexual flag because he wanted it to like be open to queer people and make sure that they felt invited rather than just like a typical like, I don't know, rugged black and red dye. It has more colors, it pops, and it just is inviting straight up from the marketing point. And in the show in Japan, it is the same cast every time. And it's 2 women and 2 dudes, and John is the main GM. And in LA, it's a rotating cast, and when I'm in charge of casting, it is always like as diverse as I can make it. I'm like, who is free? And it's not just because I want to have people come to the show and enjoy the show, but also I want to play with a diverse cast so that the story can get crazier. It gets pretty monotonous if it's at what may happen in April, but hopefully not. Be just like a bunch of white dudes, and then they're like, yeah, we can make this awesome Star Wars reference, and I'm like, okay, great, like I've heard that before. But like I do in February an all-black show, and they were at a cookout this time. And last time, one of the characters hated elves, but another character was an elf, so it was like a whole other level of prejudice. So it just like, it made it more fun because like we were able to talk about that in a different way.
To piggyback off of what Kai was saying is that when you have a diverse crew with different types of backgrounds, you get to tell richer stories. When everyone has the same point of view, the same perspective, your stories are going to get stale very quickly. When you have people who can draw on a breadth of experiences, cultures, belief systems, you just end up with these really rich stories.
And I would add on to that as well, if we're thinking about wanting to get more viewership in these things, when you have a diverse cast, then typically, at least in the like grassroots space and smaller actual plays, you do get that diverse audience as well, which you kind of want in your community, who, if they're not in the cast per se, then they are a part of your community because you're showcasing this amazing, diverse, awesome story, and people want to see that.
Yeah, I guess I'll just throw in as well, you know, we're all in a world right now where the same narrative's been told and to everybody, and it doesn't apply. And I think that there's a bit of a wake-up call happening right now immediately. If you look outside and drive around, you see it with signs and people walking around, and the future doesn't look the way that people have been telling us, and we're all waking up to it. And if you're not waking up to it, you need to work on connecting to your gut. It's more than just producing at this moment in my heart. I think it's a greater conversation about the future we're building together. And I'm talking economic future, safety, security for all. So it starts here, it starts at the table.
Yeah. I think kind of my coalesce of everything that everybody just said is diversity is important at the table because that changes the kind of stories we tell. And the kind of stories we want to tell are not just for the world as it exists now, but for the world that we want to see. So that the only way we can create more diversity is to bring it to our tables. And that's especially where I come from as a producer. My whole background, I've been producing and directing primarily live theater since I was 18. And I have this really critical moment for one of the first shows I did was Cinderella. And
Are you talking about the Rogers and Hammerstein Cinderella featuring Brandy and Whitney Houston?
well, that was the impact because that Cinderella existed. we, for the first time, we got way more young black actors to come out because that version of Cinderella told them that they could and they should. And on our like read-through, sing-through, one of the young girls walked into the room, saw everybody there, walked out, and immediately started crying. And I go, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get choked up about it. But I go, talk to her, like, are you okay? She's like, this is the most black actors I've ever seen in my life.
I have to talk about this movie. I really I actually have to. Is it okay if I can give you guys a second? I work professionally in Hollywood. When I take meetings with executives and I'm supposed to say The Godfather is my favorite movie, I don't. I say the 1997 straight-to-television movie of Cinderella featuring Whitney Houston, Brandy, and then I list everybody else because they're most important. And the reason I want to express this is because it was produced by Whitney Houston. It's black Cinderella, but it's Cinderella. When I was 7 and I saw it, it was the first time in my life I ever thought I could exist in a world. Because I'm Native American, and I don't exist in anyone's space. So the first time I saw it, even though I wasn't a lead, I saw a Filipino prince and I saw a black princess. And I was like, I think I could be one of those citizens somewhere in that world. So, like, that's how important it is. And I just have to say that, that's all.
I actually want to jump on what you're saying, and I would like to know, like, if anyone else has a story of, like, I finally saw diversity in a creative space that opened up my eyes to not only that I belong, but this should be here. Is there any other moments that's happened in your careers or your lives to expand on, like, seeing this gives me some type of energy, some type of drive to push this forward?
I think there will, because it's actually very similar, or one that is very similar to Cinderella. Is that as like an actress and singer, I had the privilege to play Cinderella, which is something that typically never really happens because of my being a black woman, being a career black woman especially, and that was kind of one of those where I was like, wow, this is like, get to be like very soft, princessy, light, airy kind of person, and that's also why, like, as a producer, bringing it back to production, that I love to make sure that when we're casting as well, that there is like so what types of characters does this person like to play, and are they interested once we get to that session 0 of, like, is there a type of character that you would love to play that you feel like you never get to play? Or is there a type of setting that you feel like you never get to play, like a black character, because you're like playing from my own experience, like, am I playing my black character like only in like historical settings, and like, you know, Jim Crow era or something like that, would be, not that that's happened to me, but I've seen that happen for folks, versus like, it's My Little Pony, but we're all black-coded ponies, like that's something that like in that area of representation and that diversity, that when you have like that freedom of being outside of what society would stereotype as, I think that's where that representation would resonate with me.
I think I didn't need to see myself on screen because I had a mom who very much hammered home the message, I belonged in whatever space I was in. And one way she did that is that I'm a Barbie collector. We struck this deal when I was in school that like for all my good grades, I would get a Barbie. And I'm treat motivated, so like, I own hundreds of Barbies. However, they're all black. My mom had a whole thing. She was like, I will not bring my Barbies into this house. And so if she had to go to like a special Toys R Us or wherever to find the black version of whatever Barbie it was that I wanted, that was the one that I had. And so I grew up playing Barbies, which is just storytelling. It's just storytelling with this beautiful black cast of Barbies and kids. So for me, storytelling has always been about myself, my representation, my identity, and I've always brought that into the room and been fortunate enough to bring that into the room. Do I understand that I'm underrepresented? Absolutely. My first fight I ever got into was because we wanted to play Power Rangers in the schoolyard, and some girl was like, you can't be Pink Ranger because you're black, and I was like, I will karate chop you, and I did.
This is such a universal experience. It's happened to me too. I'm not like joking, this really did happen.
Yeah, no, it's I meet so many black adults now around our age who the same thing has happened, but I think, you know, always being confident in my space allowed me to be a better producer because I want to further these stories. These are the stories I like, and I like to take them in, and I like to put them back out in the universe. Consume, that was where I was looking for, sorry.
I also only have black Barbies. So yeah, exactly. My dad's cousin worked for Mattel and gave us so many Barbies. I also really miss the Barbie airplane, but that's a different thing. I want to say like this was 2020. I was watching game trailers, just going through YouTube, watching all of them. And then the trailer for the game Season came out, and I used to shave my head, and I had big round glasses, and the girl looked exactly like me, and I screamed. Like, actually, and I was like, ah! And I was like, it's me, I'm in a game. She was riding a bike really well, and I don't do that, but like, I was like, oh my god, I love this, I love seeing it, and I realized like I had not seen like someone who was like me be the main character of a game in like a way that I would want to play the game. I'm not like a first-person shooter girly, so like,
Dude, I didn't feel like that until Wendell in the Wild came out, which is, it's wild, right? It's crazy.
Yes.
That movie is fairly recent, but it's the first time I saw a black emo high schooler, and I was like, they stole my jam.
How dare you? It's like that, just like games I feel, you know, really are what I look for in media to like see that representation. And part of the reason why I love Legend of Zelda so much is because Link doesn't talk. So like that is me, what are you talking about? And like while you see him, like it's, you know, use your imagination to fill in the rest of his story. But that specifically was something that spoke to me, but I also found myself in the position as a screenwriter and production assistant on something where the older white lady executive producers casted someone who was a black woman as a cow, and I was like, hey, you can't cast the black lady as the fat animal. And then they changed the entire character. The issue was that they came to me, the PA, and they're like, what animal should we make her? And I was like, this is so weird. You don't pay me enough for me to answer that question. But like, they ended up making her a moose. Whatever. It didn't, was it better? No.
Yeah, I don't know if that's better.
No, but she's a tall, skinny moose.
There's a lot of that in theater as well. And I was gonna say, like, there's so many examples I could give of like what brought me to the diversity is important in production and casting, but I had all of that again so much earlier in my theater history and producing and directing theater. But when I got into tabletop games, and especially when I got into live games and I started going to conventions, I started seeing the pattern of all these people announcing their convention panels and their live plays and, you know, whatever next show or stream they're doing, and going pale, and oh, 4 out of 5 are men, huh? And I got really frustrated and fed up with that, and it made me, so it's not what like it made me think diversity is important, but it's one of the things that like really cemented for me that diversity in tabletop is critical, because the talent is not there. It's not that the talent isn't there, let me say it right. You know, the talent is overwhelming, and I think that once you start casting diversely, it's this chain reaction where you keep getting connected to more and more talented players that don't look like, you know, the typical white straight male that we think of for tabletop. So that's why it's important, is because that will then grant you access to more talent and more stories and a more interesting cast overall for whatever show you're trying to produce.
Well, piggybacking off of that, okay, so you have the idea, you're making a show. Now it's time to cast that show. So in practice, tell me what intentional diversity casting looks like in actual practice. What do you look for? What do you try to push for? How do you do such a thing? Especially one that doesn't pan. Yes.
So one of the unfortunate lies in this space, and that people try to push forward, is that we are not producing shows, and that this is not a business. Everyone wants to sell the fantasy that we're just 5 friends at a table. And the thing is, most of your friends look like you. And then your show is boring, and that's a problem. We need to be treating this like it is a business and like we are casting a show. And that is how you get your diverse tables. When I am casting, I am thinking about chemistry and friendship. I'm fortunate enough to live in Los Angeles and be connected to a beautiful tabletop scene that is incredibly diverse, so it's not difficult for me to find people with different backgrounds. But I'm also very aware of the 5 friends at the table lie. Most of those tables are white tables. And so in my mind, it's how do I make this space more colorful and gayer every time I'm thinking about it. And I have wonderful, straight, cis, white friends who are great players, and I put them in their home games. I'm not putting them in my shows. We don't need any more of that in my shows. What we need in my shows are trans people, and gay people, and people of color. And those are the first people that I'm reaching out to every time I cast a table.
Yeah, I would say on a very practical note, I cast shows where it's a different set of 4 like every month, and frequently multiple shows a month. So it's kind of a same formula. But I start with usually who the DM is, and then an anchor player that I think is a good chemistry match with them. And then I have a Google Doc where I have the headshots of every player in my roster, which is about 66 characters right now, or 66 actors right now. So that I can literally rearrange headshots, and I'm looking at the people I'm trying to put together, so that I'm not just thinking about a good mix diversity-wise, but also like chemistry and types of players. If my anchor player tends to be very loud, I know that I can grab one of my quieter, more subtle players as a good balance. But truly having that visual of who I'm casting is so helpful, because it also forces me to go, oh, 3 white boys, wait, let's move one. And stretch it out over another couple of months. Like, they'll all get cast eventually, but I'm playing people Tetris, basically.
Yeah, I can just throw in as well, I've produced several things. I've also been brought on, as a lead dungeon master, and then help steer things in different directions. So when I put together ND&D, which is the first, at least in my knowledge, all Native American tabletop game, the most important thing for me as we assembled was like, well, we gotta get a Black and Native person in here. Like, that's just, I'm not gonna run the games unless we have somebody who's Black and Native. Because for me, that is where I start. And there's like, I don't want a table full of light-skinned natives. It's just raw in my body. And I think the reason I get excited about that, when I think of that, when I'm producing, it's just you will have these ultimatums. Like, start from a place where you're like, this is what I want, this is what I want to see, this is what's most important to me as I'm putting together my group, and then everything else will follow. So I just wanted to throw that one out there as well. It's good to have like a tent pole and know what your boundaries are.
I'd say, as a tip for the even just thread with all of this is also just be in community with other tabletop producers and players and be a fan of shows. Because I think one thing that in the different types of diversity panels, there's usually the question of like, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know where to find these people. Like, I don't know, they don't know me, so how are they going to know? Like, just talk to them. Just join the Discords and chat and not be weird about it. And then maybe if you drop the link that's like, hey, I'm running a casting call. And they're like, wow, I remember that person. They're a lovely individual. I watched some of their stuff. Maybe I'll submit. So, because it's actually not that hard to find. I think that's just when you are surrounding yourself, like it's been mentioned, it might be harder. But once you are going to seek out these communities, not to be like, I'm here to only cast, but in this genuine wanting to seek out diverse experiences and interact with the entire tabletop community, and not just a corner of it, then that will kind of help you also as a person, player, etc. But it also will make your casting calls actually reach the people who need to reach, because algorithms, things like that.
Not to brag, but all, for like, a large majority of my friends are POC, queer, like, other abled people. So I don't have an issue asking my friends to be part of my show, and they will automatically be diverse because, I'll say like 95% of the white men I know are my friends' partners. So like, I'm those people. Who are you? But like, so I'm very fortunate in doing that, and it's usually like, okay, I'm gonna play with this friend who, and like what Sarah does, like who would be a match for this person, because my show is a comedy show, and I need to have people be able to like riff off each other. So I'm like, okay, let's go, let's put you here, you here, and then see if they will be able to chat, because usually when I have a show, we have a practice show, so that's how everyone like comes together and gets used to each other's comedy. But searching for people, I would say, is simple. Like, you put yourself in that community, getting people to be in the show and have like a safe schedule, like any play like show, any game is the hardest part. And there have been, like, I have people I don't work with anymore because they're miserable to work with, where I'm like, okay, everyone can't do it. Do I work with this awful, terrible person again? And then I just sit there and I'm like, do I go on the hunt and stress myself out and find someone else? And it's usually that. So yeah, you'll find me running around and asking people for stuff, but now we have this lovely group of people, I will be asking all of them to be in my show, and that's how it works.
I just like to note that Sarah has put me in a bunch of their shows, and I would note that they've always put a quiet person on the cast at the same time.
I saw you have that epiphany of going, oh, I'm the anchor player.
I'm definitely the loudest person at the table.
I think Sarah put us in a one show Lemar, and she was like, I'm never doing that shit.
Damn! Too much.
It's so good, and I would do it again, but I do need to spread your energies out. Yeah, no, just thinking like, I mean, you're here, you're at cons, network. I mean, the only way you're gonna meet more people is to network, and it also, like, just be freaking intentional about it, and be, I'm a little bit, I think I'm a little bit open about it, that I'm overseeing the same people over and over, and I understand that as a producer, I have the ability to cast and pay as many people as possible. So I'm very intentional about like, yeah, I'm pretty much only looking for BIPOC or you know, queer, otherwise diverse players, and I flat out tell all of the white men who come up to me after my shows, very frankly, I'm like, I'll take your headshot and your resume, but truly odds are good that you'll never get a call unless my scheduling is extremely dire.
I put that in his name.
Yeah, I'm very honest about it, because I don't want them thinking that they're gonna get a call. But sometimes, like, that's how I got Ruben, if anyone knows Ruben, like,
Ruben's great.
yeah, that's how I got Ruben in a show, because eventually scheduling didn't work out, and the white boy got the call, okay? It does happen.
So you actually said something that's unique in the TTRPG space is that you pay your players. So once again, this is focusing on producing a show, and the thing about producing is that we need to make money. And the way that some of us make money doing this is actually getting sponsors. So, how do you actually go about pitching a show where diversity is a figure point to these sponsors? Is there a particular language? Is there a particular way you go about it? And I know we're starting into like we have to talk to people with money. Sometimes they're not the nicest people, but like, how do we go about doing that? Because I would like to get $20 to play games.
I, fortunately, am at a place where I can kind of bank off of my own reputation, and it's, unfortunately, there's not a lot of dollar compensation that happens. But we do get, you know, free handbooks, or like, we get to play test games. Those are things that I've kind of done, and I just rely on my reputation, and I kind of say like, hey, I have this award-winning stream with this all-black cast, and we're gonna do a new season, and we would love to play test 3 bears in a trench coat. I just made that, that's not a real game. You know, but and a lot of times it is kind of finding some of these smaller things, right? People are hitting up Paizo and Hasbro every day, and their emails are going unanswered. Sometimes you do need to reach out to 3 bears in a trench coat because they are just as hungry for people to put them on as you are to be sponsored.
One thing that I've done in the past, and I will say that there's a strong caveat that the biggest pitch I had was for Pride. So there was like, they're already looking for queer stories because they're like, oh, shit, Pride, gotta do something, we gotta do something, and it worked to my advantage. But I think that there's the combination of there are diverse stories to be told, there you can have diverse creators, et cetera, but that does not mean that the numbers aren't there. In fact, all of the time, they are, because people are excited about these things, and they might not be like to the millions of views or hundreds of thousands of views, but those are still respectable numbers. So a lot of the times, what I find what often happens, especially for diverse pitches for actual plays, pitching talent that is, in terms of follower count, like probably a little bit lower, but they are a person of color, they are a queer person, they are gender diverse person and some type of marginalized identity, is that usually, as in putting on the marketing brain now, well, there's reach, which is how many people that someone can get to your channel, the persons that you're trying to like add up, like this is our cast total follower count, etc. There's also things like engagement and interactions. And a lot of times that I've found, anecdotally, is that there is a higher engagement usually with diverse stories when you're posting clips, when you are a diverse creator that's talking about something that resonates with people, then people are like commenting like, oh my god, I felt that, or like liking it, or sharing it. And those are meaningful in their own way from the people that are only looking at analytics. Of like, this means that although I know that I am probably going to reach maybe like 5,000 instead of like 10,000 people, for example, the 5,000 people that are watching this, that are going to interact with this post, they are more likely to then convert because they're actively engaging in that content. So when you're trying to convince people with money, then you can be like, this is important because X, Y, and Z. There's the emotional element of like, this is important because of the things we explained that my diversity is, and here's also the cause and effect of supporting that with like some numbers behind it. So you combine the two, then usually it gets your point across better.
I'm gonna throw in, I work in TV film, and I also, in some ways, ironically, just because I'm a super nerd, I was there at the very beginning of the exploration of what it would look like to put tabletop games on screen. I was there keeping sundry. I was there with Sirens, with Sin, like we were doing it, And I never had to chase to get paid in the space because it's always come. And I think people don't understand that it is a business, and it is, I've always approached it as one day I want to sell a Dungeons and Dragons television show. Still the goal. Like when I joined, because I was like, that's what I care about. I want to bring me into D&D. What a beautiful thing to have more women of color in the space. So, my sponsorships, like I got sponsored by Wizards because they saw our online content, and for years they've covered our bills. When we reach out, they will give us money to put it on. I'm lucky enough to have that connection. I am trying to find financing right now for ND&D, and this is kind of insider knowledge, but whatever. There's a native network that looks for potentially funding and getting grants out to native creators, and we're like, hell, this is a cool way to put down a very small amount of money, get a crap ton of content and cool crap out of it, and you get to see natives be funny, and not like freaking sob stories talking about all of our dead relatives. Like, I'm good, you guys are good. I'm very alive, sorry to say, sorry, government. And then like, one thing you don't cut out one of the ways that one of my more recent shows got funded, freaking con panel. Ended up talking with somebody, we had a great chat, we got drinks after at the hotel, and this person was like, I'm so passionate about what you're doing, I'm a lawyer by day. I got a little money in the trove for making stories like this. How can I help finance it? So just find the angel people. We're all here, we're all together, we like want to make beautiful stuff happen. Like, be open to where it is, and don't be afraid to like create those relations and those partnerships. And we're probably actually going to be doing it together a lot, but it's wonderful when somebody outside the circle who maybe is a little hesitant to come in can come in and become that angel investor as well, and we get to make something beautiful together. So just throwing out that there's other alternatives besides traditional sponsorship routes.
So I have to jump on that because I threw a little look to our moderator here, who is one of my angel people. We very recently filmed some content for the show we've been doing, the Rumbles, for the last 4 years together to kick off season 5 with some new content and a new direction, and Lemar is very generously supporting that effort. And the other thing is, so he's donating in a very solid monetary way, and then also our filmographer donated essentially his time. And what Danny said to me, our filmographer, Black Axe Media, was he's like, I'm willing to do this because I know you're going to get it done. And so many people in the industry will not follow through. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're reaching out, when you're asking for sponsorships, people are going to do it and give to you in that way with either trade for their trade or monetary support, if you have proven to be a person who will get it done. and he will do it, and he will finish a project. And that's how the Roguelike Rumbles got started all together, is at karaoke at 1 a.m. I hit up the owner of that bar, and I was like, oh my god, I want to do a show in your space. And he's like, oh, I wanted an in-house D&D show. And I was like, okay, I'll do your D&D if then I can do my pub sing. And he's like, yeah, sure. And I came back in a month with a project plan. And I was like, I've got a cast, can we have a date? And he went, what? And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, you did it. And I was like, yeah. And so now 4 years later, we have this long-running show going into season 5, and that bar is the partnership to the sponsors that pay for the cast and the filming. So yeah.
I mean, that's also how Final Girls got put on, because I contacted all of the players that I wanted in that game and was like, hey, I want to do this thing, do you guys want to do this thing? And we're talking about it, and I realized, oh, I haven't reached out to the channel yet. And I texted the owner of the channel, and I was like, hey, Jake, I have a new show. And he was like, okay, what do you want to film? Because he knows that I am a solid producer who will bring him good content, who will bring his channel views, and I follow through.
It's a lot easier to say, as a channel like co-founder, it is a lot easier to say yes to things when you know that person would, just be able to do it. Because a lot of times in the tabletop space, if it's not the person with the idea, then it's the producers or co-founders. So then it's like, well, I don't have the bandwidth for that, but it's like, I just say yes, and here's my channel. Pretty great.
I don't have much. My show is a charity show, so we don't tell you more.
It's very bad. Well, but you are generating in other ways for the community.
Right.
So,
And like, it has to go with like speaking to people when you need things. Like really just be very forward. Like I needed help editing videos, and Joe edits most of the videos. Thank you, Joe. We love you. Yay. And so like just asking for help when you need it, because doing everything by yourself is hard.
Yes. Let's get to something slightly uncomfortable. When you do produce shows that has diversity, you're going to have either people at your table or the audience challenge you in some form. How do you navigate that in a professional setting to stay true to your values, but not harm your product? That's the best way I can word that question. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
I think I can start. And I will say, by producing diverse games, diverse games, I feel like there's a level of player safety that I don't have at a non-diverse table. When I'm at my table with my all-black cast, we can explore some of the isms that normally I would never touch in a million years with other people, right? An example that I use quite often is that we had a session where I messed around with them and I made them think they were fighting the Grand Wizard of the KKK. It was actually a dragon when they got to the battle. However, they were so fired up about fighting a racist that they beat the shit out of this dragon, and it turned into a very funny, cathartic moment. I would have never touched that at any other kind of table. I am producing this horror show that is an all-film cast, and we've already talked about our lines and veils, and there are some women's issues that, at a table that was not all film, I would never touch them. But because we are film players and we're using horror as a vehicle, we are going to touch on some of these more sensitive topics because we can do so in a safe way that is cathartic for us. And I think there's I'm not going to say this correctly, but there's a U of safety where sometimes we go so far in trying to be safe and trying to be comfortable and trying to be good that we miss telling some good stories, we miss exploring some really heavy ideas. And I think when you are at a table that's invested in whatever that difference is, right? Whether it is an all-queer table, an all-black table, an all-film table, those are things I can speak to. I'm not going to speak to anything other kind of identities. But when we are within those identities, we can explore things that challenge us in a very safe way because we're coming from a similar point of view. And now I will say, as far as the audience challenging us, I have no problem throwing down a band hammer, and I've done it before. And it's happened a lot, especially when Blackness and Dragons first started. There were so many people who would either come to chat or comment on our YouTube and be like, why is everybody black? Or how would you feel if I, the one that, oh god, I love this one. They're like, how would you feel if I started yellow this and dragons? And I was like, please do. It can be a sister show. I would love to see an all-Asian table. Like, come on, do it. And you know, really the guy was just trying to needle at me, but like, I want to see more diverse tables. You're not needling at me, it's not being funny. Like, I want to see more diverse tables. When people come in and chat though, like one time, a person did come in and chat, like, why are you all black? And one of my friends who was a mod, she was like, you can't just ask why you're black, and then immediately banned him.
I think that you just have to be a protector of your space. And for me, I'm very fortunate that, sure, I can moderate and ban people online, but I also, quite literally, at our venue have a bouncer who will remove people happily if needed. So it's almost never a problem with the audience, but I also want to say, from the internal perspective, it also means having really, really hard, but deeply honest conversations with your players. And I've had 2 situations, and they worked out in 2 different ways. With the one player, they ultimately could not understand the ways in which they were harming our community. And so they are no longer welcome in any of my shows, and they never will be. And the other player was immediately like, oh my God, I didn't realize my actions, my words had an impact on that person in that way. Please ask them if they're okay if I reach out and apologize, or otherwise please express my deepest apologies to them. And that situation was otherwise resolved. But you just have to be able to have those conversations and say up front to your players, you know, when a line gets crossed, even if you're live on stream, take a break, take a 5-minute break, and then go in private chat and say, hey, we need to talk about this. Or if you're recording to stream later, then just edit it out and reset, and feel free to take the time needed to have those conversations.
I wanted to add from because I think the other part of that from Lemar was like also the having to not harm your brand with that when you are setting those boundaries, because obviously when you're like, hey, what you did was problematic, and people are like, no, they get offended even though it was objectively that way. A great way to kind of nip that in the bud is when you have a community, whether that be your show, your channel, even like you as a creator, like have like some type of like, this is what I stand for, these are my boundaries, and this is what's important to me. Then when someone does that, you're like, well, this wasn't me just being like, this particular instance, I didn't like that at all, because this particular instance, like, no, this is a set rules. So for like example, for my channel, we have our Twitch rules, we have them on our YouTube as well as in our Discord. So in case of a player or an audience member or someone tangentially around is breaking those rules, be like, hey, we're not going to associate ourselves because we've already had this set rule system, set values, if you will, and they did not meet that because of X, Y, and Z. And having that in place is kind of like that little buffer of like, this is not personal, but you just did not meet that because of these reasons.
For my show specifically, everyone goes through me, and I know that if they have a problem with me, they're not okay with the entire thing, because like, I am a Black queer woman, I'm dressed, I can understand like what it's like to be uncomfortable in a space. So if someone's going to be uncomfortable, I won't work with them again. And I also wanted to add to Jordan's story about having that Black show, and someone like, should I make the Asian show? That literally happened to me in high school. I was the president of the Black Student Union, so like, well, what if we had an Asian student union? I was like, make it. You want me to make it? That's weird. Like, do the show, or not the show, the student union. And then they did, and it was really large because of where I grew up. And they kind of like had to like separate into groups, and I was like, perfect, amazing. Now you have your own like ethnic groups that can have their own safe space in our school. And I think that needs to happen with all shows. Like, we were talking with Kai Kagawa yesterday.
There's 3 Kais that we know.
So lots of and they have an all trans group, and I was like, hell yes, like I fully support that. I'm now subscribed. I am
Check out Transplaner, excellent work.
Yeah, and so it's just like, I want to see these other shows that I might not identify with, but I am fully supportive of, and we keep it going.
Yeah, I'll just throw in real fast at the end there, like trust and responsibility are key things both within your table and then with the audience online. I'm freaking chaotic on the internet, and I will never not be, because like I've been on the internet for so long now that I know that if anybody tries to crack whatever wall it is, whatever audience reaction that is, I've done so much work on myself that I just see a mirror and I'm just like, have fun staring at it and blocking you. And I restrict all of my comments on threads. So literally, if you don't follow me, you can't talk to me. And I don't want to hear you. And it's beautiful. Oh my God, it creates such a safe space where community can actually grow. Because you're not getting these constant trolls and dissenters. And you're creating, that's the thing, you're creating a space here. Like this, you gotta curate it, you gotta create enough trust with the audience that's on the other side of that, and that comes with responsibility and time, and working on yourself as a producer to make sure you have those boundaries and you never take anything personally. It's really hard. But
to your point, Kelly, I hate this idea that we think that we need to be in conversation with any person who wants to be in conversation with us. We don't owe these people anything. I will block you if you don't like a movie that I liked, okay? I really don't care. God forbid you come with racism, then I will super block you.
The old internet rule, no one is owed your platform and we do not feed trolls.
yeah, like if you don't use the Oxford comma, I might block you. Like there's, you know what I'm saying? Like there's literally sometimes, I fucking love the Oxford comma so much. I also just want to share though, like that's more like audience relations. When it comes to the table, so I'm starting this audio drama. I'm not producing it, but I'm a player at the table, and in it, it's really interesting because I'm the only American, and it's all British people. Hey, go not.
Had to be done.
And it's really interesting because when we were setting it up, we're playing an RPG called Teeth, which is a very interesting RPG. It's new. It's very British. Constables, all that good stuff. And it's set during the reign of King George III. And it's fascinating to play because they were like, "What do you want to play? You can be anything." And I'm like, "I'm going to be a native child who was stolen from her family and shipped overseas and has no idea." And they're all like, "Oh, okay, yes, please play that, yes." And it's been really interesting navigating it because this kid is crazy. Like I love her. She's batshit insane. She blows everything up all the time, and it's really cool and healing to be able to play a character like that in a space where everyone's British and has ties to that land. And I'm sharing that to say trust and responsibility because I know everyone at that table has an immediate understanding of trust, and we all understand there's a responsibility in telling that story, even though we're just having fun and goofing off. There's a deeper theme that we're trying to bring forward. So remember to bring that to your table as well as to your audience.
Perfect. Thank you. First thing, thank you to all of our panelists for giving me this information. I am frustrated we don't have another 30 minutes because there's so many more questions
Okay.
that we could do. But
I had a thought, and I'm gonna try getting everyone's schedules. We have been given permission to record this, so we are gonna air it online, and my hope is we can maybe coordinate that to be a time when everyone can stream and be available and do Q&A online later.
I'm perfectly down to do that, and everyone else is. But, so what I'm gonna ask is we're gonna go right down the table, give us your name, how to find you, and I would like you to give me in one sentence, I know you're gonna give me two, try to give me one sentence, any advice you could give to someone who goes, I get it now, I want to start trying, but I'm afraid. What advice do you give to someone who wants to do it, but they're afraid they're gonna mess up? Congratulations, and if we will start with Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sarah Durnesque. You can find me. You can find all of us. Just QR that, and everybody's tagged and everything. That's how you'll find all of us. Or Pinky Poison Productions. Make sure you are firm in who you are, what you believe. So you may want to do the thing, but maybe get your ass to therapy first just to check. And then do the thing.
I'm gonna say my thing first because it fully contradicts what you said. Mine is be unhinged and have that one unhinged friend to do it with you. Therapy? No, I did therapy. Yes. But yeah, I'm Kai Grayson. You can find me at Kai Grayson, and Roles for Initiative LA is my show. It's also in my bio on Instagram.
Kelly D'Angelo. You can find me at the handle screaming random things on the internet. I'm on threads mostly nowadays. My word of advice is that in the history of humanity, it takes courage to make change. So if you want to make change, which I hope you do, courage.
And I'm Jade Valkyrie. You can find me everywhere at Jade Valkyrie or my channel Video Out and Out, which is also tagged on my stuff as well. My advice would be, if you are unsure when communicating, just over communicate.
I'm a Jordan Lambert. You can find me on the internet at Lambert. It's my last name with an extra R-A-A at the end. And I got so excited because I actually talked about this in therapy yesterday morning, and then I brought it up in yesterday's panel. Sherry Shepherd was on The Masked Singer, and when she got kicked off, they asked her why she did it. She said she watched the show with her son, they always enjoyed it. He said, Mommy, you should be on that show. And she said, I don't know, I'm scared. And he said, do it scared, Mommy. Do it scared. Just do the thing scared.
My name is Lemar the Con Guy. I am the most uninteresting person on this panel.
Nice.
But to add my 2 cents, because you need my voice, just do the thing. Thank you very much.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, I have the best internet for the area, and I'm dying.
Upload speeds are wild. It's so hard to get good upload speeds. But you look smooth now, Sarah.
Yeah, that was clear.
Great. Take 3?
Hey, you know what? I've done take 5 before, so we're killing it so far. Knock on wood. Friends, we did a restream of our WonderCon panel. Now we're here actually in person dealing with tech hell, but you're here also. So Lemar, who is also here, is gonna moderate our tech burdened curses and maybe lead us through a little Q&A that might have to be shorter than intended. Because the tech gods hate me.
It is okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Lemar. I'm your moderator. Once again, we had a wonderful panel at WonderCon this year, and we had so many great questions that we could not fit in the 50 minutes that we were allotted. So now is the time for us to expand upon stuff and speak about some things about creating seats at the table in a professional setting while keeping true to diversity. Which, you know, I had a different question to start off with, but I have like a general professional question for you, all 4 of you, as professional producers of streams and stuff like that. How do you just like navigate tech hell? Like, it is a natural thing that happens to all of us. And here's the thing, Sarah, right now, Sarah's running so many, it's a spinning plate, right? But this happens to all productions. I've seen tech hell happen to Crit Roll from time to time.
Wow, that's really funny because that actually happened this morning.
Did it really?
Yes, it did. Actually kind of a similar issue, so I guess I could jump in a bit because of that, because it's really fresh in my mind. So one thing, and this is a bit different because with like Crit Roll, and since it just happened, we're kind of like edging PR comms about it. But essentially we usually do like a live stream before our live shows, because I think actually it might be done by now because we're on the West Coast, but they're having a live show right now in Atlanta. But even then, even at like a really high level, like there's nothing that you could do whenever tech is tech, like right now with my camera about to go out again, but just pretend that I'm here, right? So when these things happen, you just kind of have to go with the flow because you can only control what you can control. So even with all these things going on, we really could only control how we were uploading and our comms and things like that inside of Discord. So you just kind of gotta roll with the flow. And I feel like what is really the kicker is that you can prepare so much and there's still gonna be something that goes wrong. But what is really the testament to professionals is how well you can handle things when them going wrong. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be like, oh, something going wrong, well, we're gonna like be like, I'm so sorry, everything's going wrong. Oh, it's the worst, the worst, the worst. For this example, since it's so big and it was so live, and we had a lot of folks chatting and said a Discord that were super excited about it, then that's where you kind of like work the audience a little bit. So we're talking about like, oh, are you excited about the show? Oh, it's characters from past. You're super excited about that. How's everyone feeling today? I know that it's an earlier stream than usual. So you're kind of like building this atmosphere and making sure that is when you're a producer and people are going to watch something that you are producing, then you're not only having to deal with your tech and your cast, but also like your audience, because you want your audience to stay. So that's way to kind of balance both the tech gremlins and hopefully there's a team there. If not, then it might be a bit harder. But even if it's not yourself, then maybe like a cast member if you're working with like a smaller group of people to make sure that both on the tech side's great, but also on the audience side, you're kind of making sure to keep those folks engaged because they are your biggest supporters and they are the folks that you're putting the whole thing on for. Otherwise, you're kind of just doing it out into the ether. But eventually, the point is for somebody to watch it. So that's usually kind of go with the flow and make sure that both sides are kind of covered in that. If not, I might have to become a PNG tuber for a sec. So I might be an anime girl if all things.
I mean, I'm fine with it.
I think it's when you flex those improv skills, and I've had this happen. Blackness and Dragons is now converted to a pre-recorded format just because of scheduling reasons and some tech difficulties that we're running into. But if you're not doing a pre-recorded format and you're doing live, there was one instance where like I'm the GM of that game and my computer restarted like in the middle of the stream. And so I literally grabbed my phone and I texted the cast and I was like, just vamp, you guys. And they just did some crazy role play that did not necessarily affect the story, but that was still entertaining to the audience until I was able to get my computer started again and hop back into the stream. There was another instance we had where we're all in green room and one of my players had a power outage in his neighborhood and he's like, we don't know when we're going to get power back. And we're sitting there and like, well, we're all ready to play. What are we going to do? And I was like, you know what? Let's just play Honey Heist for half an hour to an hour and see if Mo gets his power back. And if he does, he does. And if he doesn't, then we just had a weird one-off session.
I think just because, I mean, the whole point of us being here is also like, particularly like producing live tabletop, but also like with the eye for diverse and safe tables. This isn't necessarily wholly on track, but maybe to kind of aim us in that direction. The thought of like, the only reason sure, we're having problems tonight, but I'm doing some incredible tech work and it's not like a yay go me. It's I have worked really hard and been fortunate enough to make connections with incredible and talented people that I only have because of all of the other intentional outreach work I've been doing for producing and dungeon mastering and tabletop, that I've learned through that network that I've developed of how to literally do this tech. Like this is in essence a result of the diverse networking I've been doing because I've been really intentional about making connections and like developing relationships with people. That's how I learned how to use OBS. And then, you know, I know at part of the panel we were talking about, you know, everybody's got like Discords or whatever. Like Discord people were the ones teaching me like really how to do then the like connections to get it on Twitch and you know, the overlays and studio mode and maybe not, this nonsense means nothing to any of you watching, but if you get into the producing of all, reach out to me and I'll teach you. Yeah, like it's not its best tonight, but the fact that we can do it at all is only because people have taught me and people have passed that knowledge on, which I think is part of how we get diverse and safe tables is we are opening those network channels and making use of them.
Yeah, I think that my favorite, and please hold as I change to a purple-haired anime girl. I'm sorry.
Was
we
not
will.
ready.
Yeah. We'll
That's
we'll fix it live. We'll fix it live too. There we go. But my favorite safety features have literally been things that I have like stolen from respectfully have stolen from other from other producers that I admire, both for like safety tools and also just organization things, which funnily enough have also been really diverse. Actually, I think that Kai Kagawa, not Kai, that Kai. The other Kai that would have been kind of, I think, an alternate for this panel is one person that I really admire that does their entire organization process really well. So that is one of the people that I've just been like, can I copy your homework, homie, for a second? Because I thought I was having a great way, but I'm loving like as a and that's a great thing about networking too, is when especially if you're playing as well, is that when you're a player versus a producer, you can be like, oh, I'm just a player. Wow, this is a great experience as a player. I want my players whenever I'm a producer to feel this way. Yoink. So that's just like another great way where even not thinking just in terms of like the side, but also like the table safety as well, because that's a really good way to make sure that your diverse players are feeling safe at the table is by, using those tools that are for safety.
I only have a little bit to say because my show is a theater show that's not streamed anywhere. So most of what we're dealing with is like the camera that I'm recording with going out, or the microphone's not working, or someone's computer, or someone just not bringing a computer. Not even like the computer is dead, it's just like not there. Um, so it like goes back into high school theater. Like we just have to share microphones or share computers or just like be on your phone, have it printed out, et cetera, et cetera. On like the social media end, because I'm doing this show just like by myself, I was complaining. I will always say you complain to your people. You're like, ugh, I have too much to do. I can't get these videos up in time. And then my friend was like, I'll edit them for you. I was like, thank you so much. So shout out to Joe. But just like tell people what you need. That is a skill to tell people what you need. But that's kind of like how you'll end up with the support you need. Kind of like what Sarah said. Like someone will teach you. It'll be good.
That is perfect. I bring that up because I believe that us creators producing things that is about diversity and about a safe space to have that diversity has a brighter spotlight on us to be more than some other shows would be allowed to fail at. And so I bring that up to say, like, how do you balance the pressure of having this diverse space while still like not falling to that pressure of like, if I'm not perfect, it's going to fall apart? Because I know in the things that I do, me as with the privileges I have, and the privileges I don't have, uh, a single mistake is the difference between success and failure in my head. So how do you as producers, as professional producers, navigate that when you're working within a diverse space like this? And I know I asked a hell of a question, so take your time.
It's the you have to be twice as good to get half as much, right? Like we hear that all the time as Black people, twice as good to get half as much. And you can't let that affect your work at the end of the day. You have to go out and put your best foot forward and do what you can. But also, like, the thing that I remember is that I deserve this spot just as much as anybody else does, you know? And if someone else does not recognize that, then honestly, they don't deserve to watch my game. Like, if you think that I don't belong here, or that, you're going to say, oh, she's just a girl, she's not really into it, or any of those, like, God, the fake fan thing just really gets on my last nerve as a woman in this industry, but we hear it all the time. And it's one of those things, like, if you are just that stupid and that closed-minded, don't watch my game. Don't, because the chances are I'm not going to change your mind. There's nothing that you're going to see at my table that's going to change your mind and make you less of a misogynistic racist. So just don't, leave us alone.
Sorry, I was trying to check the tech things while we're at it. I don't know. I sit in a weird place of like, I understand I bear a lot of privilege in the space by virtue of, the pale. And also I think I happen to ride somewhat of a wave of like, I don't know, I'm trying actively to get like more femmes in the space. Um, so I'm sure I experience a lot less of the pressure of doing it perfectly. But at the same time, like I have my own extraordinarily high standards of like, I don't know, whatever gifted child bringing up I had of like, if you don't do it perfectly, you're wrong and bad, and why should you bother doing it at all? And it's more the like negative self-talk that I'm working with versus I think necessarily outside forces. Um, but at some point, I also feel like, I don't know, the fact that I can do it at all empowers me to make sure it keeps happening, whether or not it's perfect. And I'm just really grateful to have an incredible network that has joined me in all of these projects, that when I fail and when I fall, truly like y'all are here catching me going, it's okay, we'll get through the tech together and we'll laugh about it and we'll, you know, put on our avatars instead, and we'll just keep making it work. I think it's just another matter of if you build it with the right people, those support beams will be there.
I'm gonna jump in again really quick and then I'm gonna shut the fuck up. But to piggyback off of what you said, Sarah, is that I always remind myself that like making bad art is better than making no art at all, right?
I mean,
Like when it comes to my negative self-talk, doing something poorly is better than not doing it. And I think about the Tumblr post where it's like, you see this really beautiful cake and you're like, oh my God, that's so beautiful. I want to make a beautiful cake. And then you make a cake and you're like, this cake is not that great. And you walk away from it and somebody walks up and they just go, oh my God, 2 cakes.
yeah, I think that's similar to what I was gonna say. That plus also like just a little bit of like spite, if anything else. If like I feel like there's different layers where I've definitely done all the things that we talked about, but one of that hasn't been touched on, I think, is also spite, because if you're not gonna do it, there's someone else that's gonna do it. And I think about this a lot of like the story about like Michael Jackson and Prince, where like Michael Jackson was like would like wake up in the middle of the night and be like, I have to record this because otherwise Prince is gonna. But like that's me with like mediocre like white men, to be frank, in the tabletop space. Or like I gotta make sure that this happened. I mean, some of this stuff like it wouldn't happen. I'm gonna be real. Like you know the things I could produce, but in a similar fashion of like, oh, if I'm going to like, you know, make sure that this is something I want to be produced, or this is something where I really want to get like the best cast possible, et cetera, then if I'm not gonna do it, someone else is gonna do that idea, and I want to make sure it's the idea because I want it to be what I want it to be. Or I want to do this because if I don't get this XYZ, then that means that I can't, you know, like do my idea, and my friends don't get the game that they want, et cetera, et cetera. Like there's different paths of that where you can go down, but at the end of the day, it's just that like no one else is going to produce it the way that you do, and if that's, you know, not perfect, it's still the way that you produced it. I almost said producted it, and that's not right. Produced it. And like there's always like some type of starting thing. Like I see like even my own streams that I had like from way back when, where I'm like, wow, that was something. But at the time I was like, this is the best thing I can do. So also, it is a you're perfect might not be perfect, period. It's just the perfect to what you had know and knowledge of your own brain. So there's, yeah, it's hard. It's like there's always something else. There's always something else. So thinking about those is kind of like my, I guess, safety net if the other ones don't work, of like, you know, coping with it a bit better with some healthier ways. But sometimes you just gotta, you know, take an unhealthy route to get to a healthy location. Don't quote me on that.
To not to jump back in again, but just because something you said, and truly not to call this person out at all, because I have continued to work with them in other capacities, but like the original dungeon master for my main show, the Roguelike Rumbles, was gonna be a white man that I was partnering with, and he backed out last minute, and I went, I guess I'll just dungeon master the first one and then maybe find someone else. And then it ended up just being like essentially a solo project that I'm now very grateful for, because I have, unfortunately, in other collaborations, like I don't necessarily always have 100% control over the casting of some of my like collaborations, and that has created some struggle. Whereas because this is all me, I get to create the diverse and safe tables I want, and I think what we've been doing would be very different if it had ended up that original partnership.
I have a similar situation to Sarah when I started doing well, I forgot the name of my own show. That's crazy.
All our brains are wonky right now. It's
Wait,
a
what do
very
I do?
Monday, Tuesday.
But when I started Roles for Initiative LA, my intention was just to be a player and like the producer, but also a player and not really be the DM. But having someone else try to make a good show doesn't always work because we have different standards of what a good show will be. And, and then I started doing every single show and fully burnt myself out and had someone else do the next one. So it's like, but of course I watch it and I was like, this is fun, but not up to the standard that I want it to be. And rather than being like, oh no, this is terrible, let's stop. I'm like, next time, we'll get it next time. It's not the end of the world. Um, my show is a charity show, so sometimes like, oh man, we didn't make enough to donate, but I'll be like, okay, next time, what can we do that will, boost ticket sales, etc. I find that themes really do well for that. So doing a nice fun theme show. But definitely just like seeing or being able to like not predict the future, but like see into what will be better next time is kind of how I keep going.
Nice. Nice. Now, speaking of ticket sales, speaking of producing, the professional side of all this is super important. When you started to treat TTRPGs, actual plays, your shows as a business, how, what difference did that make into still creating a safe and diverse table? Did you find it challenging? Was it easier? Do you have certain things you look for or wary of, if we're being honest about it? Because there's a visible risk doing it that way. So how do you navigate that?
Those things were always married together when I started. There was no separation. I'd been, a hobbyist TTRPG player for a while, and I Blackness and Dragon was born out of me and my mom joking when we were watching TV together about things in Black culture that could be D&D spells. And so we were joking about it, and I repeated that story to a friend who was a streamer, and she was like, "That's a whole stream. Like you just had the whole idea for a stream right now." And I was like, "What, are you serious?" And she's like, "No, really think about it. How many Black people are in this community, let alone all Black tables?" And I was like, "How are you, a white person, no offense to her, like I love her dearly, having this idea and I'm not? This is insane." And we talked about it, and we talked to the producer who produced her stream, and Blackness and Dragons was born. And it was always born out of this idea of celebrating Black culture and having Black people to be able to sit at a table that was safe and funny and felt like home, and also making the space more colorful. So I've never unmarried those things. They've always just been part of my professional journey. And I think that at this point I've kind of set a standard where I have, my all Black table. My next show that also has Sarah in it comes out very soon. And it is an all femme table. I've kind of backed myself into a corner, and I know some great straight white male people who I would love to play with, but I'm like, unless we find a way to make this really gay, there's no way I can have you all at the same table.
You all need to become trans right now.
Well, okay, no, the idea
Who's the egg? Let's go.
Boom, boom.
the idea that we had, I think I was just this last stream, was honestly to take all of my guy friends, but then make them all play girls in a magical girl game. So that's
Yes.
that's where we're landing on that idea.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
like that, or they gotta be a charity stream for
Yeah.
Black rights, something.
Yeah.
They also
Make them work.
they have to dress as magical girls. That is a rule. You gotta put that in there.
It is part of it.
Since I'm already blabbing, I'll just continue. But yeah, that is similar to what Jordan was saying. It's kind of how I live my life.
it is something that like a lot of my friends are of diverse or marginalized backgrounds, and that is who I play with. So I have like created this community of people who understand who I am, and if they don't, I yell at them, and then we like will go from there. Um, but just like as a person, I am very like straightforward in my beliefs and my morals, ways of thinking, who I support, what I do not support, and just from having those people around me, it reflects in my show and like in all of the things that I do. Um, like tangent, but I will always say this because now it's my full personality. I do pro wrestling. The pro wrestling league I do is gay. Like it's not just like I'm around a bunch of white dudes who smell like beer. It's like I'm in with a bunch of weird people. It's freaking great. But it's just like, we don't like I could have gone to some other group, but I didn't. I found who I know I would be comfortable with and they would be comfortable with me. So that's how we're hanging out. So yeah, my advice would just be to like look around you, and if you're offended by any of your friends, don't be friends with them.
Yeah. I have a group that I go to a festival with regularly, and basically we're like a little family. And our family leader, our tribe leader, he was like, where are the other girls? And I was like, oh, the theys are all in the bathroom. And he's like, thank you for correcting me because they all are non-binary. And then he looked at me and he's like, are you the only cis woman in our family? And like we had to sit there and count through like all of our members and be like, yeah, that's right, because we surround ourselves with diverse group of people.
Mm-hmm. You did it. You win.
Nice. I think that going back to the question, I think that for me it wasn't necessarily like a difference that I made, but more like issues that I didn't think about before that then became issues. Which I'm fortunate to have already had, being a Black woman in this space and having the friends that I have. It helped a lot to know people. But one that came up was sort of getting enough folks and making sure that also they had the appropriate tech for it to be kind of, a professional look. So that's something that I feel like it's overlooked a lot in the space that we take for granted, especially now, like post COVID, and a lot of folks did end up working from home in some capacity. So a lot of folks ended up getting, if they were fortunate enough or their work gave it to them, then like webcams and a mic. But that was not necessarily always the case, and it still isn't the case. So not making sure that one, their webcam and mic and stable internet connection, which is still, an asterisk, especially because sometimes you just can't control that, as we have seen, especially if you live in Los Angeles. But the stable internet connection, the camera quality and mic quality, things like that. So that was one thing that kind of did become an issue for a second, where we had somebody that we really wanted to work with, but like their financial circumstances. But they were a great player and all these other things, but just the state of the world and socioeconomic inequality, but also just kind of in general. It became a burden. So, look, fortunately enough, this is a time where we were able to kind of fundraise and group fund, like basic webcam and microphone. But that's not necessarily always the case. So that was one issue that did come up that I feel like made a difference in terms of like how I word my castings nowadays, and how I'm kind of like keeping a radar on things. So it's even made me kind of think of like, what if there was even kind of like these more casual off-stream kind of like auditions, if you will, if people did have time to be like, oh, hey, if we get and work with like what we have in the bare minimum, and then see if this player is like, a hidden gem, like super extraordinary, but this doesn't have the right tech. Because I'm sure that there are many, many folks out there. So that's one thing I'm kind of like noodling on in myself. And if you're if you're a person at a company that has cameras or microphones, then please set me up. I got a great idea you can steal. And I think that on that same topic, the second thing was kind of another source of diversity that I wasn't thinking of, which is kind of like time zone and places where people live. So just the whole thing of, I mean, I am fortunate enough to live in Los Angeles on the West Coast. There's a lot of folks that are here in the tabletop space, and not then East Coasters, Central Time, things like that. We're kind of more connected. But there's been times where I've had streams where they've been at quote unquote odd hours for us. But that's because we wanted to include somebody from, like Southeast Asia, folks from like Europe, etc. So these are things that you also have to take into consideration. So when you're building your business model of this is my channel, these are my times of this time and prime time and eat like Pacific time, prime time, like that might not work necessarily for the entire cast if you're thinking of. So making sure that while you're balancing what's great for your audience and your audience will show up for if you're doing live streams, but also making sure that you are flexible and nimble enough to where if the opportunity comes, if there's that awesome person that just lives in a different time zone, while you're getting those diverse, experiences from different cultures outside of the U.S., then you have the ability to do so to be nimble. So those are kind of like those. It is business, but also like in the name of diversity, there's a way that we can probably get around it to make sure that we get those voices heard.
You've inspired like 7 thoughts versus the one I was originally going to say. So I'm going to start with those before I forget them. On the webcam thing, truly, like I was part of an incredible stream that I'm brokenhearted, got stuck in the editing hell zone, and will probably never come to light. But when we first were like, they had cast me, and we were doing the first chats, and they were like, "Oh, we don't love your webcam." And one of the other players very kindly had a spare that they mailed to me with no ask on payment or whatever. They just wanted the stream to be better, and they were like, "This is yours forever." And then the past Rumble I just did, one of our players, her webcam had stopped working, so I was able to just re-gift it because I had bought myself an even better one. So I was like, let me just pass on the not inventory, what's the resource, there we go, and give it to her so that she could be a part of our session 0. And yeah, as an eye to business, double checking when you're like when to meets or lettuce meets or whatever say time zones, and that you're checking people's time zones is hypercritical. So like that. But I think the original question was like, what difference did treating TTRPGs like a business make for you? I'm kind of in the same boat as like Kai and Jordan, where I was a hobbyist doing TTRPGs, but frankly, the bulk of it has been professional work. But I will say it becomes navigating the waters of where is it business versus where is it friendship? Because unlike Critical Role, I didn't start by playing with my friends. I started playing with people who became my friends. And so it's almost more reminding myself that the work that I'm doing is a business. And then that gives me the power to make sure that I'm creating firm boundaries for safe tables. Like last year, I had an incident at a live show that I didn't correct well enough in the moment. And afterwards, one of the players came to me and discussed a safety concern he had during the show with another player. And he's like, I'm not saying this is going to impact how I want to be a part of your shows in the future or whatever, but I just wanted you to be aware of this situation. And I said, heard immediately. Do you want an apology from the other person? Because I'm going to go have a talking to them regardless of this. Either you can be a part of it. If you don't want to be a part of it, you absolutely don't have to be. But I will, if you want, I will open them to either come to you directly with an apology or to make an apology through me. He's like, I don't really want to be contacted. I really appreciate you taking this seriously and talking to them. And yeah, the person I had to go talk to is a friend, but they had stepped into my business. And so I had to treat the situation as a business. And both sides, it's been worked out. We're all good, all good all around. But because I was able to handle that as we are out of the friend zone. This is a business question, and a question of making sure all of my tables, everybody feels safe and comfortable. And yeah, I think treating games as a business gives you a really firm border for those kind of conversations about safety and yeah, making sure that everybody is good at your table always. So there's the 7,000 thoughts.
Perfect. Perfect. With that said, say I'm a new producer. I'm like, okay, I saw these fantastic panels. I went to WonderCon. I'm watching this Twitch stream. I have the time, money, resources, and the insanity to produce my own show. But unfortunately, maybe I live in a place where diversity is just not abundant like it is in Los Angeles. So, though, without giving out secrets or stuff like that, are there like any tools and or resources that people can use, or ones that you pull from to help not only create diverse tables, but create tables outside of your own bubble?
Well,
A very specifically worded casting call, and I think Jay touched on this earlier, but you're allowed to put that in your casting calls. And I've done some one shots for charity and things like that, where it's like, oh, for instance, BIPOC Vamp Day, they do like 2 days worth of 24-hour streams, so like a 48-hour stream of all different kinds of games that revolve around vampires and BIPOC. And so I did in my casting call put that I would prefer Black people at my table first, and then other people of color, and then people of no color, because that's what I wanted for that particular game. You're allowed to do that. You just word, I would say, word it specifically in a way that is not, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but you're allowed to say, hey, for this particular game, we're going to be discussing themes that are relevant to Black people or relevant to queer femmes, and go from there.
yeah, I would say that just overall that social media, I think it's just a big one, but like you kind of have to be, especially with like how the algorithm works, the almighty and ever like intangible algorithm, where not only do you have to be like, oh, I'm going to now put into the search engine Black tabletop creators, you got to be following, you got to be commenting, you got to be engaging, you have to like actually not necessarily always be like a, and this is kind of a kind of like this could get deep if you really think about it. You can't just be like a visitor that just comes into like a diverse space and be like, "Hello, I need talent." Anyways, goodbye. Whenever you don't need talent, it kind of has to be the space when you're trying to, include diverse folks and making sure that diverse folks feel safe. You kind of have to be a part of that community in some capacity. You don't necessarily have to be there all the time because that can also get disingenuous to be like, I want to be everyone's friend. Why? Because I want to make sure I have people to cast. No, it's kind of like this thing of where you're just in that space, you can kind of naturally develop. It doesn't have to be super forced, but that's just how are going to meet those folks. Train your algorithm for social media to make it a lot easier for you to find those folks. So you can build those mutuals, so you can slide into people's DMs if you need to. And also you'll find like discords that way, because a lot of people will be like, hey, I have this discord that I talk about tabletop, or hey, my channel has a discord, yada yada yada. That's where you kind of find a lot of this information, especially in this where I think the bulk majority of actual plays nowadays are digital. So the space will likely be digital if you're in those like less diverse areas, especially. So I think that those are definitely going to be the best bets, which kind of sounds boring because, but it's also cool because social media is free. Discord's free. So these are things that, don't really take as much like financial things unless you get like a premium subscription, I guess. But other than that, like these are kind of a lower barrier to entry in term financially for that extra work in terms of like making sure you're doing your due diligence. And also in the process of trying to train your algorithm, you're supporting those diverse creators that the algorithm doesn't like as much because, once again, institutionalized racism. Yeah. Yeah. Always goes back.
Mhm. My advice is to go see shows, or I mean, because again, mine is live, so I'm thinking
Heavy.
of like live stuff. Were you saying something, Jake?
No, I was thinking it was like heavy on that for
Oh
sure.
yes.
As a flip side of also when there are live shows, then there's the
Yeah.
inverse.
Because even like when the cast isn't necessarily diverse, maybe the audience is, because maybe these people are also looking for people like them who are playing these games. Watching live shows, because like Jade was saying, if you're casting people from around the world, maybe just by chance someone is near you. Um, and it kind of just gets into like how I met Sarah because I went to one of her shows. And I was like, hey, I do this show. Like, how do you do your show? And now we're friends. So it's, I say this at every single panel I'll ever be on, just like talk about what you want. But also attend things. I'm terrible at being online. I'm not a good, as an internet girly, my first job as a PA was for a YouTube company. I am not good at like following anything. I'm like, who? What's happening? Where are we? But when you find it, follow through. Commit to that one little thing and just go. You don't need to do all of them. But you'll find your path. It'll fall into place once you like start focusing in on finding those people.
I think my like tool slash recommendation that I'm also speaking to myself about a little bit, but with an eye to like, okay, people who want to start doing, and producing tabletop that maybe live in a more remote area, is remembering that not every game has to be streamed. So like note to self is, Sarah, you need to play more games that aren't streamed and shows. Um, but one of the things I see a lot, and we've talked about a lot. Also, I'm pretty sure we talked about it in the panel. Was so many people are putting together tables out of just whoever's around them, and very much trying to mimic that Critical Role feel. Well, we're just a bunch of friends, so of course we're going to stream our home game, but our home game is in Kansas, so it's 7 people who look like me. You know, and that's fine and good, but also frankly maybe doesn't need to be the professional stream. Maybe you guys play together and hone your skills as players, dungeon masters, producers, whatever, and then you start networking and building to the point to where you can create a diverse table and really produce something professional that the space needs. Like, I guess, can I have the audacity of the white woman to say, like, I just don't think all white tables need to be being produced right now. Like, unless, I don't know, you're doing boss mission against Scientology or LDS, like, really deconstructing whiteness and colonialism. Like, I think there's some really cool narratives that could be happening there. But otherwise, like, look around and say, like, are you needed? Like, I had to kind of do that professionally earlier this year, frankly, for WonderCon. I got invited to be a part of a panel, and when I saw the day glowness of the majority of the rest of the panel, I said, I'm not appropriate for this panel. I think you need to fill the seat with somebody else. And somebody who's maybe laughing on stream right now got my seat because I sent them a list of here's my 8 recommendations that are not me. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes the tool is just recognizing where you don't need to be taking a seat. Part of creating a seat is going, oh, don't let me sit down. Let me pull it out for someone else, which I think is very much a huge part of my mission as a producer and a DM. As much as I want to be at the table all the time, and sometimes scheduling is going to force me there more than I want to. Conversations Lemar and we're having this afternoon. Our work is to create the seats, and that means sometimes taking your ass out of it.
Yeah, and I think that taking back, I think also something that we said in the in-person panel, but just to reiterate, if these things are kind of making you feel like get in your feels, if these things are making you feel like a bit defensive, then I would definitely invite you to kind of examine why that is the case and examine why that is the end all be all of like this needs to happen or why you specifically need to. But also, listening to this panel, there might be some things that could be at odds there. And something that it's good to, take the work to unpack that. Cause I think sometimes people are like, I want to do well, but they don't really, dig deeper. So then these things could kind of conflict in their brains. But part of that is kind of acknowledging the biases and kind of defensive things. This happens for everybody because we all have our own blind spots in terms of like equity and diversity and different marginalized groups and things like that. So it's part of the learning process. There's a little bit of uncomfortableness, a little bit of perhaps FOMO that goes along with things when you're just like, this is probably what's best for the greater of what I'm trying to accomplish, even though it might not feel the best in the moment.
FOMO is the word for it. But just following up, seconding, like sometimes our tool is a mirror and a journal. Like, take a good look at yourself and then go write about it, you know, and work through it.
Perfect. To try to put a little bit of frosting on this very delicious cake of diversity, I want to open eyes to those who might be stuck in their own idea of who they are, where they started. And so I'm going to challenge the four of you with a wild question that's not prepared at all. What show, book, character, or event in your life can you contribute to your nerdiness starting? What show, movie, book, character, or event can you contribute to your nerdiness starting? I say this because I grew up in the rural parts of North Carolina. And I grew up where we had a very strict way of being. Being nerdy was not welcomed at the time. And I did not find myself being welcomed until I moved to Connecticut, which I know what I just said. There's other parts of Connecticut. We're at there too. I trust me. But I went to my first anime convention in Connecticut at 18, and that opened my eyes to like, oh God, I'm not alone. And people who look like me also enjoys screaming, fighting space aliens. So, what actually kicked y'all's life down this nerdy ass path that we're all on?
So I have two older brothers, and they're like several years older than I am, like 8 years and 13 years older than I am. So their comic book collections became my comic book collections and all that. And my mom was always very encouraging of us. Always just like follow your bliss, whatever that is, little black child. Even if it doesn't seem like other little black children are doing this, like do, you know, whatever. Reading was reading. She didn't care if it was a comic book or a novel. Like all reading is good reading. Video games were on the table. Her one hard and fast rule is that if she really did not like the content of something, then to balance that out, you had to do an hour of something church related. Like that was her. So like nothing was off the table as long as you were willing to give it that hour of church stuff. So I grew up very in a home that was very open to nerdiness and weird stuff. And I think what I say a lot, for me, I think the most influential piece of media as a young person that got me super into fantasy, honestly, was The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is technically a fantasy novel, and the movie was just, that was my jam. I went through so many pairs of ruby red slippers, and my house was covered in red glitter for years. And I loved The Wizard of Oz and The Wiz, and that really just, I think, opened the door to storytelling for me. That and Disney.
Perfect.
Mood. I think mine's a little similar. Where instead of brothers is my dad. My dad's the classic 70s, 80s nerd guy. Lots of comic books, lots of kind of like older video games, things like that, older anime. So that kind of was like already my foundation as it is, because my mom was more so in law school when I was younger. So my dad was, you know, being ahead of his time, being the guy to really step up and make sure the kid can do all the things. But in terms of like what my own on top of that to really lock in the nerdiness for life, oh, it's absolutely Naruto, or like 100,000%. And also Percy Jackson. I think that those two kind of led down the fangirl pipeline of then finding fan fiction. But this is way back when it wasn't just fan fiction. Sometimes they had fan fiction in the form of quizzes on those quiz making websites. So you had to click through and it'd be like, oh, click for the next chapter. And then the quiz result was the chapter of the fanfic. So that kind of led down to the AMVs because people were linking their AMVs inside of their fanfic, things like that, to really join the fandom from like my own kind of like investment. And then also I'm going to also slide in Dragon Age as like the video game to really be like, and also fantasy, because without Dragon Age, it probably would have been like, oh, this D&D thing, eh. But with Dragon Age, that's what kind of was the sleeper in terms of like, it's like all the romance of the fan fiction that you like, and also video games. Ah, so those two, I think for sure.
For me, like the exact moment, I'm not sure because I like the first cartoons I was watching was like Pokemon. So I'm like, okay, we can go back to like me being 5. We can go all the way back there. We can do like, oh no, I hurt Lamar's feelings. We can like, I think when I was in the 6th grade, my music teacher had us watch Doctor Who because he didn't feel like teaching us. And it was like he had all of David Tennant's, no, Christopher Eccleston's episodes on DVD. And we watched all of them. And then in the 7th grade, I switched schools and I was like, oh yeah, my music teacher had us watch Doctor Who. And then my friend was like, oh, I love Doctor Who. And then had me watch all of David Tennant's. And we had a 7th grade. We had a
Sorry, we're in chat. Razzing Kai because her age.
have a child.
Oh, wee baby.
And then my friend and I had a watch party for Matt Smith's first episode. I think at that point we might have been in high school. I don't know.
I'm a
But,
similar
like,
age, and yeah, around high
I
school.
was
Yeah.
really, I am like I'm a millennial. I stand by it.
Just barely.
Barely, but
I think
been-
technically it's Zoomer. Technically,
Millennial, I got you. I heard.
yeah, it's millennial.
Days.
It depends on the day, honestly. What you claim.
Yes. My sister and I have this argument because she is fully Gen Z, and I'm like, no, you don't like Backstreet Boys like I do, and that's how I determine the difference.
All right, you can stay.
Thank you. But I would say that, and then like fantasy. Unfortunately, Twilight had like me in a full chokehold, and then it fully just escalated and didn't end. And I started watching anime in 7th grade, and we just now I'm here. So thanks.
You just can't say unfortunately Twilight in front of me, knowing that I do host a Twilight podcast.
But also, I still love it. I don't want to. I will take up your time.
And in a second follow-up stream, we just talk about all of this. No.
Twilight.
I mean, like the 90s quartet of, Sailor Moon, Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, Pokemon, like all of that. But also, I was thinking about it, like specifically as it comes to tabletop. Unfortunately, because there's 2 of them, like the message board forums. The one, unfortunately, being the Wizard with Glasses message board forums. But not in defense of that property, because F that and F her and everything she's doing. Those forums were some of my earliest introductions to queerness and gender diversity. Because I was like a 12, 13-year-old in these role-play message board forums where everybody was role-playing whatever they wanted to be. So that meant a lot of people were able to be openly queer, trans, poly, non-binary. Like my first non-binary person I met before that was a term. It was just a friend of mine in those forums whose name was Mel, and depending on the day, Mel was he, she, they, or one. And that was my first introduction to like people having various and varied pronouns, which is a thing I have carried with me for a very long time. And frankly, it was like part of my way out of and deconstructing the rigid Catholicism and Christianity I was brought up in was role play. And that thread from those roleplay message board forums, I did a lot less like actual roleplay, but also the Phantom of the Opera message board forums were a heavy part of my childhood and adolescence. And that's where the screen name Hendel comes from. I have been Durnesque on the internet for a very long time, and thankfully the Phantom of the Opera message board forums and the Wizard forums no longer exist on the internet, and I don't think got saved by the Wayback Machine, so you can't find anything I did. Any silly romances I had and or wrote, whatever, you can't find. But yeah, definitely like the golden age of the internet gave me a safe place to start role playing very early.
Perfect. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up this fantastic panel. Why don't we have everyone tell us who you are, where we can find you in some upcoming projects, so that these people can see what it's like to be a professional creating seats at the table. Let's start clockwise with Jordan.
Hey everybody, I am Jordan Lambert. You can find me on the internet at Lambertra. That's my last name with an extra RAA at the end. I have all social media except for Twitter. I don't really check my Blue Sky, but just whatever. Pop in, see what's going on. We'll figure it out. My next project starts sometime in June. We are going to land on a date very shortly, but it's called Final Films, and it is a horror TTRPG stream with a rotating cast of game masters in a different system every month, but it's always a frightening good time.
Fantastic. Kai.
Hello, I am at Kai Grayson on Instagram, and my show, Rolls for Initiative Los Angeles, is at Rolls for Initiative LA, and it is a charity show that is done every other month-ish. Our schedule's knocked off because of Hollywood Fringe, so it's now in July next time. Boo, comedians.
Fringe. Doing burlesque, not comedy.
Ooh, that's fun. Maybe I'll go to that. Yeah. So we'll be in July next time, and it's every other month. It is a charity show, and other than that, I do too many things. I also am a screenwriter, and I do pro wrestling. I believe I'll be doing a mini showcase at Dyke Day in LA on June 13th. And oh goodness, I always forget, but there's a lot going on, and you can just find me on Instagram and I'll post about it. It'll be great.
Perfect. Sarah.
Oh, because we were going clockwise. I was trying to redo the queue so everybody's IG handles are, but I typed it wrong. Okay. There we go, Nightbot. Thank you. So yeah, Sarah Durnesque. I run Picky Poison Productions, which you should know about if you are on our Twitch stream, and if you don't, you know now. Our next thing is going to be the Rumbles, because that's all we're doing until the bar is back open again. Might have some streams, just Twitch streams only, but keep your eye on Pick Your Poisons page for any of that. Next Rumble is going to be June 18th, and somebody on this stream will be DMing. Is it probably me? Probably. Unfortunately, DM scheduling is the best part of D&D. And when we're trying to do some very specific things with specific players, you do have to wait for schedules to align. So at any rate, it is our anniversary show. It'll be celebrating 5 years of doing the Rumbles. It will be in the new Rumbles roguelike tavern space. So come out for that, please, or catch it on stream, because it's always live on stream too.
And then Jade.
Hi y'all, I'm Jade. You can find me everywhere at Jade Valkyrie. And Twitch is Jade Valkyrie with the 3 at the end. Upcoming stuff. We're kind of in a lull right now because I'm doing a lot of in-person stuff, like press things. So you can find me best on YouTube. That's where I'm kind of uploading a lot of the like preview stuff and my own things, as well as Bewailed and Out. Right now we're doing an edit down of our Mass Effect Mirage Season 2, the Mass Effect D&D 5e stream with, you guessed it, a diverse cast of folks. So we're editing that down so you can watch it for the folks that didn't get a chance to have it in live. Other than that, let me think. Yeah, I think that's what I can talk about right now, at least. And definitely follow all these other lovely folks. So yeah.
Our incredible moderator, please talk about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lemar Harris, again, Lemar the Con Guy. I am a guy who does too much for attention. I just finished a 4-day LARP where I played a vampire for the 4 days. There was 10 of us. There was 10. There was 10 of us. I just have been announced to that I am going to be running karaoke and the cosplay host for Origins Game Fair later out in June, which my boss does not know I'm going to be taking time off for, which I'm sure he will not be pissed off about in any way, shape, or form. Um, there's a small possibility that I'll be at San Diego Comic Con if things go correctly. Uh, and then, and only then, will I be allowed to die.
No, I need you for all of season 5. You're a critical component.
I need to sleep, Sarah.
All right, fine. You can take a long nap.
Sleep is
Oh
overrated.
God, so tired. I just did
Uh,
4 days of a performance.
All right, our moderator is melting. We gotta go. Friends, if you watch this through the hell tech we survived, tech hell we survived, thank you. If you're watching this later, maybe I will restream it with some of the heinous awfulness clipped out, but we appreciate all of you that were live with us at the actual panel. Those of you that were here, I think they both came through anonymous, so we didn't shout out names, but we appreciate the people that sent through questions, and we were glad to spend time to answer them. I'm gonna attempt to roll credit, but I think I broke it. So if it gets weird on stream and goes black, then a credit will roll eventually. You just have to believe in it. You have to believe in the credit roll, and then we're out. Have a great night, folks.
Bye, y'all.